Welcome to my 232nd video on my work with OO gauge. The subject of this video will be further doings with respect to my efforts at running a Jinty, a Fowler 3F060 tank engine, on my Hornby Dublo 3-rail railway. Specifically, I'll be aiming at replacing the crimson Jinty that I've been running 3-rail with a black one, in LMS livery of course, since my focus is mainly on pre-World War II LMS operations. Some time ago, I fixed up this Jinty to run on my Dublo 3-rail tracks, see part 208 of this series. This model is the Hornby model from somewhere around the 1970s. It has separately fitted handrails and nice safety valves and a whistle, and it doesn't have the body screw in the chimney as the earlier, cruder Triang Hornby Jintys did. I got this running 3-rail by fitting a Marklin skate pickup for the centre rail. There was enough space for the Marklin pickup thanks to the drive gear being right at the front on this model. See part 208 for details on the wiring of the pickups, etc. I had used this particular model as the basis for my 3-rail Jinty as it was essentially the only one with the right type of chassis that I had on hand. But I wasn't very happy with the livery of this model, as I'm pretty sure that the LMS never actually ran Jintys like this finished in crimson. So I really wanted my 3-rail Jinty to be in the more prototypical black, and to that end I'd been looking for a suitable black Jinty body. I bought this model on eBay under the impression that it was a repainted version of the same essential Hornby model as my crimson 3-rail, so I was hoping to be able to fit this body to my 3-rail chassis. I did try to find just a black Jinty body to buy, suitable one. There were several for sale on eBay, but all the bodies that were for sale cheaper than this loco were obviously damaged in fairly severe ways, missing chimneys, buffers, steps, rails, etc. This model was definitely sold as R052, or at least that was the box that it came in, and the Jinty that became my 3-rail was also sold as R052. But it appears that Hornby in the earlier days weren't as keen as later on using a new product number when a new version of a model came out, because it does appear that the earlier cruder version and the later more detailed version of the Jinty were both sold by Hornby under the product number R052. So buying a used one, telling what you're getting, can be very tricky. As I say, I thought this was going to be the same version as my 3-rail. It looked in the eBay pictures as though it had separately fitted handrails, but that effect with the handrails is actually just hand painting on the plastic moulding. This turned out to be an example of the earlier, cruder Triang Hornby Jinty, and as such was no use for my body replacement project, as the bodies attach quite differently for the two versions. The early version has a body attachment screw in the chimney. In the later version, the chassis just clips into the body front and back with no screws used. At this point I despaired of picking up a new black Jinty body for this project, since I'd been trying for quite a while and failing, and decided to just work with what I had. I had a sort through the various OO gauge Jintys that I had on hand. I was looking for a possible body exchange, so something with a totally different body fitting would obviously be useless. This basically meant that I needed a Hornby model probably not too early and not too late, in hopes that the same body would be used. I ended up coming to the bench with these three. On the left is my crimson 3-rail, in the centre is another example of the same Hornby model, but this one is complete with the pipework on the right side of the boiler at the front, and that part's missing from the body of my 3-rail. On the right is a newer Hornby version, R2658, released in 2007. Definitely a different mechanism, but maybe the same body? I took the newer Jinty apart. I'd rather forgotten the details of body fitting, so I didn't know quite what to expect. I removed the couplings just because I was looking underneath for screws, but it turned out that the body fitting in this case did not use screws. 2 pins at the front of the chassis and a clip at the back of the chassis engaged with holes in the plastic body to hold things together. The body could be removed by pressing in on the clip at the back. When I took apart my 3-rail Jinty, I realised that it used the same system for attaching body and chassis together, although the chassis itself was in most respects quite different. I added weights to the body of my 3-rail Jinty when I originally made it to help it get round the WWII track, which wasn't really made for lightweight locos. I got a 1/2 ounce weight up the back behind the cab, and a 1/4 ounce weight on one side at the front. I put similar weights into the black body from the newer Hornby model. Then I put the 3-rail chassis into the black body. It was possible to get the two to fit with the clip on the back of the chassis engaging with the hole in the back of the body. But at this point I ran into what turned out to be, at the time, quite a massive problem. The model wouldn't run with the black body on. The chassis ran okay, but as soon as the body was put on, applying power produced no effect at all. I have to admit that this baffled me. I spent well over an hour wrestling with this, getting more and more frustrated. The motor just wouldn't run with the body on, no matter what I tried, though it ran fine with the body off. I suspected that somehow the pressure of the body was causing a short circuit, though I couldn't really see how. The main possibility seemed to lie in the tangle of wires behind the motor, so I fiddled around with those quite a bit. In fiddling around with those wires, I caused another problem as I displaced the rear pickup, which was attached to the end of one of those wires, and then the pickup was getting jammed in the wheel, stopping running. Eventually I noticed and fixed the pickup problem, and I gave up on the rear wiring as a possible source of the problem, since I couldn't really see how it could cause a problematic short circuit for 3-rail running. I wanted the wheel pickups and the chassis to be electrically connected for 3-rail running, since both would be picking up from the side rails, one from one side rail and one from the other. And for 3-rail running, I wanted the 2 side rails connected together. Of course, that would cause a short circuit for 2-rail running, but it's appropriate for 3-rail running. I finally came to the conclusion that what was stopping the motor running with the body on was that the contact I'd added for the wire from the centre rail pickup to one of the brushes had made the outside of that brush on that side just a little wider, and the body, when fully fitted, was pressing on that wider brush top and so pushing the top of the brush in so that the bottom of the brush pivoted out away from the commutator, thus stopping the motor running. When I arrived at this conclusion, I adjusted the way I was attaching the wire from my centre pickup, that's the black wire on the near side here, fitting the attachment on the inside rather than the outside of the brush so that it shouldn't cause the body to foul the top of the brush. And when I did that, finally the model did work with the new body fitted. Sorry, rather a long story, but not half as long a story as it actually took me to arrive at this conclusion and fix the problem. With the body fitted and the model working, I turned my attention to some details. The black body had one vacuum pipe fitted when I started this exercise, but that broke off during my endless struggles taking the body on and off. So I fished out this detail pack that I had hanging around. The pack had a sprue with a couple of vacuum pipes, which is what led me to this pack, and there was also a NEM coupling, not currently applicable, and 3 crew members for some reason, 1 driver and 2 firemen. I figured that I might as well add crew to the newly fitted body. The old Crimson body did have crew. I just did a bit of basic painting on the crew. I painted their uniforms blue. Whilst the blue paint was drying, I stuck on vacuum pipes, first on the front buffer beam, and then on the back. And that hole next to the vacuum pipe is where the clip that retains chassis and body together goes. You push in there with a screwdriver or something to take the body off. I went back to the crew figures and painted faces and hands. Definitely not a great paint job, but the figures won't be seen very clearly in the cab of a tank engine. I went for lunch at this point to let the paint dry on the crew figures thoroughly. So this was the bench at this time. I had put the Crimson Body formerly on the 3-rail onto the newer Hornby 2-rail chassis just to round things out. Here were my painted crew, such as they were. Now the trick was going to be to get them into the cab. I could barely fit the driver figure through the opening into the cab. And once he was in there, he rattled around this way, up and that, and I had a devil of a job to get him into position and stuck down, which I did with a dab of CA on the bottom of his seat. I used the toothpick for insertion of the glue. Then I did the fireman, which was even more fiddly. The figure in the Crimson Body seen at back here is certainly painted a bit better than mine. Still, I was glad to have the crew fitted, though I do wish I'd done the paint a bit better. The blue came out very shiny, though of course it doesn't look quite this shiny under normal light. This is a flash photograph. I got the rebodied model onto my 3-rail tracks for some running. I wouldn't say it's exactly a great runner, but it's not too bad. It does have trouble pulling much, even with the weight that I added to the body. But I did manage to get it to pull this little freight train, albeit maybe with a little wheel slip here and there. So I have finally got my 3-rail Jinty running in a suitable black body, and I'll finish now with a bit of running video. Well, there's this little Jinty with its new body on the layout again finally. It don't have much pulling power, unfortunately. Even I did put a couple of weights in the body, but even so, it's not got much grip. Famous last words. It struggles to get round even with a little train like this. You can see the wheels are slipping. I don't know whether you can, but they are. But we'll do what we can. I mean, it does sort of go. But especially around this bend, it struggles. Its wheels are spinning there because it can barely manage to pull these wagons round there. The front one, of course, is a converter wagon there. It's got a tension lock coupling on the front, because this is a converted engine with a tension lock coupling, and I didn't change its couplings, and it's got a simplex on the back to couple to the other wagons. Ugh. And now, of course, I've got the thing stuck because it's on the point. To give it a little poke to get its hiccups over the point. So what can I say? It does sort of go. I had a heck of a time persuading it to go again when I changed the body, but it is going. Hesitated over that point then, because it struggles to maintain contact over that point, but whatever. And it's actually getting wheel spin as it goes round that corner, but so it's of necessity something of an express freight train to keep it running, but well, there you go, it is running anyway again. And I do prefer it, I have to say, in this black incarnation, which is much more sort of historical. So there we go, famous last words. Let's pull him up there, and that'll do for now, I guess. Famous last words.